placed on researchers to collect our own biodiversity. So may I know your comments about, of course, the restrictions are in the interest of conservation, but may I know your comments about this? Because when you started your research, I believe that these restrictions were not in place.
Yes, no, that's very insightful comment. It certainly is true that I think because there were almost no laws about conservation, the first restrictions that were put in were really to conserve our marine environment. But not much thought was given to continuing research on marine biodiversity or on marine natural products. And so I think that what happened was that the laws that were put in place really made it very, very difficult and very bureaucratic for researchers like yourself to make progress. I believe that any researcher who does not go out of bounds should have essentially unrestricted access to the subjects that are being studied. And to have to go through enormous bureaucratic hoops to be able to go on a single collection trip is, I think, self-defeating. And I hope that we can all work together to make a more rational protocol for researchers to be able to access the biodiversity that we need to investigate. I think that one cannot overestimate the amount of research that needs to be done on biodiversity. And unless we know our biodiversity, how can we value it? I mean, I think knowing about the tarsiers of Bohol and how unique they were compared to everything else made it far easier to have the public appreciate them. And the turrid snails that I talked about, I mean, 90% of those have probably not even been named yet. And so I think we do need to be able to do research on biodiversity in the most efficient way that we can.
Thank you, Dr. Olivera. I've been told that we have time for just one more question, and we have UP Tacloban on the line. The moderator there is Professor Melody Fabilio. The question is, are there toxins found in conus which are similar to those found in cowries?
Actually, almost no biochemistry has been done on cowries at all, as far as I know. And cowries are not venomous, so I suspect that they will be very, very different. However, we cannot definitively answer that question until some biochemical work has been done on cowries.
Thank you, Dr. Olivera, and that's all the time we have for our open forum. Shall we change? Okay, one last question from the floor. Yes, please.
I'm Zandro Cobillas from the UPIS. This is my question. How would I know if a conus snail is dangerous or not when I'm not at the beach? When I'm at the beach, sorry. Example, mahilig po ako sa snail, namumulot-mulot ako ng mga snail. Paano ko po malalaman kung dangerous po ba ito?
Well, in general, you should be always be a bit careful when handling cone snails. But in fact, if you know their behavior, it's usually fairly easy to tell. So most cone snails, if you pick them up, they go into their shell. And as long as they're in their shell, they're not dangerous. Now, when a cone snail is dangerous is when it sticks its proboscis out. And so if you see something coming out and getting longer, then drop the snail immediately, would be my advice.
Okay. It does take a while for our students to warm up and overcome their shyness. I've been told that there are a few more students who would like now to ask questions. From PSI, from Philippine Science High School, we have a question.
Cristel Cotingting. How do they apply the drug Prialt to people? And how did they test the drug?
That's a very sophisticated question. So, in fact, you probably have realized that peptides are not drugs that can cross the blood-brain barrier. And so this is a problem because the drug acts within the spinal cord where the pain fibers come in. And so you can't take it as a pill, you can't take it IV. So the way it is applied is that a pump is implanted in the patient and the pump pumps the Prialt into the spinal cord. Okay? So it's an intrathecal delivery into the spinal cord. And this is one reason why the application of Prialt has been a little bit limited so far.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Olivera. Just one last question. Yes, sir.
I am Dr. Labadan, retired. Ang question ko po, are all the snails you are using in Utah from the Philippines?
We have actually started to look at snails from outside the Philippines because we want a complete picture of all cone snails.
Okay.
And so recently we've been looking at snails from Mexico and from the Caribbean. But all of our early work was from snails in the Philippines.
And one last question. The potential medicine that you have is named Prialt.
Yes.
Have you even thought using the word Pinoy? No. Ito.
Yeah.
Pinoy is pain inhibitor not yet found. Something like that. This is serious because when you have a commercial product, to make your work to be known all over the world, the word Pinoy is Pinoy. And, think about that.
Yes.
That will propagate your legacy.
Well, the problem is that choosing a commercial drug name, you'll be amazed at how complicated the process that is. It's apparently before a decision is made, the drug company has many consultants and considers many names, and that's something unfortunately completely out of our control.
Thank you, Dr. Olivera. Perhaps we will see Conantukin and Contulakin later on as drug brands. So that wraps it up for our open forum this afternoon. Again, thank you so much for all of you who joined us here in the theater. And also those who were with us watching the webcast and all the UP campuses that video conferenced with us. Thank you very much, of course, to Dr. Olivera for indulging us and for giving us the opportunity to hear. I'd like to acknowledge our campuses that joined us in the web conference: UP Baguio, UP Manila, UP Los Baños, UP Cebu, UP Tacloban, UP Iloilo, UP Mindanao, and the UP Open University, and of course UP Diliman here in the theater. And so we thank also those who asked the most interesting questions. Thank you very much for having raised those very interesting points. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite everyone to please rise for the singing of the UP Naming Mahal, the Exit of Colors, and the recessional.